What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show here on Sherdog.com. My name is Sean Sheehan, and today I'm here to preview the One Championship on Prime Video 22 card, and it's a really fun one. I'm going to take a major look into the 4 big MMA fights on this card as well, but there's some very good other stuff on this card as well, whether it's Muay Thai MMA or whatever you're having yourself. We get into that here in a second. I just want to mention again, because I usually mention it on these One Championship previews or some of the other promotions as well, the landscape. And let's take maybe a quick look at where the landscape is at the moment for the let's put it, the chasing back outside of the UFC. I think it's I said at the turn of the year, right? Or maybe even a little bit earlier, around this time, around 4 or 5 months into the year, we'll know a lot more. And I think I'm wrong, right? And I think there's a number of reasons for that. I think the PFL/Bellator merger has been good, but maybe not. It hasn't seen the explosion yet that we will get out of it. I think One Championship have put on some very good cards, but I think you see what some of the lineups come up. A lot of the big One Championship cards, the big fighters, the big fights are about to come in this year. It feels like we're still getting there. And not to say there hasn't been good events, because there absolutely has. But I think the Bellator PFL deal hasn't had the major changes maybe that affected them, but also maybe, you know, would maybe get Chattery to put on some bigger fights, or maybe get some other organizations to put on some bigger fights. Yet no, I think it has down the line. And we saw the 166 card from One Championship. I know there was a few injuries that hurt that card. That was a great card, and that there was a bit of that there without a shadow of a doubt. But I think we're seeing it with the card upcoming here in September and all of that. So it's very interesting. We're still almost in a bit of a holding pattern, I think, here. And I feel, it was the story of the year, a lot of people said, but it just hasn't really kicked into gear yet. This kind of, this big battle we're all hoping for. And I think I'd love to see if a big, I don't know, let's say Israel Adesanya became a free agent, or, Bilal Muhammad became a free agent, or someone like that. Would One Championship be in for him? Would PFL be in for him? Would whoever else might be out there, in whatever part of the world they might be in, try to be signing this big fighter to take them to the next level, to think, right, that upcoming card with that fighter on, it's unmissable. Say the likes of with PFL Bellator, can they get Francis Ngannou back on a card here? Can they get AJ McKee on a big, massive card or something like that? And One Championship, I think, can they get Demetrius back? Is Demetrius going to fight again? Are these massive Muay Thai and kickboxing fights going to maybe take off around the world? Which is they very well could, if they can get a star. Can Roberto Soldic kind of get back to winning ways? The Christian Lee come back and all of that. There's the likes of Rug as well is great, and the heavyweight champion, who is, we all know, one of the best heavyweights in the world, Anatoly Malikin. I feel like it's all there, right? And it's all there, and it's a recipe. I feel like I gave you this recipe at the start of the year. We've had a little, maybe we've had a starter, but the main course, I think, is still to come. Hopefully this year. Like, it's weird in MMA, right? And I've had to teach myself this down through the years. We always expect things to come faster than they actually do. So you're expecting this, who's going to take that mantle, who's going to go to the next level, who might challenge the UFC. Maybe no one, right? Maybe no. We can all agree with that, but maybe someone will take it. Maybe someone will hit fire. Maybe someone will sign that one person who goes to superstardom and can really help their promotion. But maybe it's a slow burner. Maybe it takes time. Maybe maybe you have to line it all up right. And I do really think that's where we have been. And I'll say it again, right? Because if you look at One Championship, like One Championship have put on, obviously their Friday fight night cards, which are always good, but they've put on, how many in the first 5 months of the year? Probably, there are 5 or 6 good monthly cards, which I've obviously previewed all of them. They're all very good. PFL have done their 3 shows and their Versus show, and they had a Bellator show as well, didn't they? If I'm not mistaken, they did, I think. It was in Belfast. Was that the one? Yeah. So they've the same amount of shows, and they've all been good, right? They've all been good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we get in the second half of the year, what that next level show will be, and who might take off. So, tune into One Championship, but tune into PFL and Bellator to see that, because I think it is. Again, I'll say it. I'll reiterate. It's not it hasn't caught fire yet. I think, like we were all hoping, but there's that spark. That spark is there. So, fun times ahead, right? And fun times ahead this weekend too, because the 3rd of May is a very, very fun card. Friday night. Sky Sports over here in my part of the world, in obviously, as we know, on Prime Video in the US and in Canada. So very, very couldn't be more accessible to the major markets, I suppose, for mixed martial arts and the other martial arts as well. As you know, I'm going to concentrate on the mixed martial arts, but just a couple of standouts. The main event is Smilla Sundell against Natalia Dichkova, and if you kind of follow along with my tweets or my post shows, which I talk more about the Muay Thai and things like that in those, and I'll have one this week as well, you'll know how much I think of both of these, but Sundell especially. Her last fight was absolutely phenomenal, was so entertaining. I watched it and thought, like, she's the type of person I think who could transition over to MMA and probably do fairly well. I know my countrywoman here, Danny McCormick, was replied to one of my tweets and go, she's been doing jiu-jitsu for years. She could very well move over and do MMA. And that's a frightening thought. So if you're an MMA fan and you're thinking, who could the next Alex Pereira be? Who could the next star be coming over? Well, Smilla Sundell very much could be that. I love watching her fights because she is a proper Muay Thai fighter. Like, she gets that Muay Thai clinch. She throws those knees inside. She's very tall and big and leggy, and it's Muay Thai. Sometimes you tune into fight and go, if you just switch on the telly, you go, oh, is this MMA or Muay Thai? I'm not sure. She's a Muay Thai fighter. You couldn't miss it. Dishkova, I wouldn't say the same thing about her, but my God, she's an exciting fighter and a very, very effective one as well. I think they're very, very different in their approach from the look. As I said, I'm not a massive Muay Thai expert or anything like that, but the few fights I've watched both of them and going back watching them again today, as I say, Sundell, she's well able to jab and she's well able to throw her shots in space. Let's put it that way. But I think her bread and butter is the Muay Thai, is the clinch, is the knees inside. She's brilliant at that, and it's beautiful the way she does it. But Natalia is very much more hands. She could, you could mistake her for a professional boxer. She throws beautiful shots, absolute power, knocks people down, hurts people, but can keep them at the end of the jab too. The pace that she puts on people, the speed with which she can throw is absolutely fantastic. And there's no betting odds out for this yet, but I'm really intrigued to see what the betting odds are for this, because it's a complete clash of styles. And usually in MMA we see a clear clash of styles, because could be a wrestler versus a jiu-jitsu person, or versus a striker, or a karateka versus a judoka, or whatever it might be. Whereas Muay Thai is Muay Thai, but there's very much, I think, a close clinch artist versus I wouldn't say Dishkova doesn't like to fight close, but when she's fighting close, she's putting hands on you. She's getting closer to you than you are to her. Does that make sense? It makes sense in my head. So I'm really intrigued by that fight. Really, really looking forward to it. And it's a very good headliner. Just to touch on some of the other ones as well. Sinsamut Clean Meat is fighting Dmitry Minchikov. Again, like myself, if you have been watching a lot of the One Championship guys, you'll be very familiar with both of them. Two very exciting guys in the Muay Thai ranks. Hiroki Akamoto is fighting Wei Ri in the kickboxing Also in kickboxing is Rungari, who what's his nickname? What's his nickname again? I can't remember. It's like the death kicker or something. I can't remember it offhand. No, I don't have it in front of me, but an absolute beast of a leg kicker. He's fighting Bogdan Shumarov, and like Rungari, again, one of those lads. I hear every time I hear that name, I'm like, well, I'll be tuning in for that, because I'll be honest, I haven't been. I've said it here before. I wasn't a massive Muay Thai or kickboxing fan. I liked a bit of it, but now I feel like I'm a bit of a casual fan where I hear a name and I'm like, Rungari's fighting. Yeah, okay, I'm watching that. A Tongpoon, another one of those guys as well, out of PK Sanshai, very, very good fighter. He's in a strawweight Muay Thai fight with Zakaria El-Jamari, and with that sort of size, just really small guys, you know what you're going to get there. You're going to get a lot of pace, a lot of quickness, a lot of absolute madness in that one. And then the last Muay Thai is Sean Kilmeso against Jose Cruz. And there's also one submission grappling matchup between Brazilian Bianca Basilio and the Japanese fighter in Nanami Ishikawa. So those are the non-MMA things on the card. So let's get to the MMA fights. And I'm very, very, very intrigued by these MMA fights. Again, there's only 4 fights on it. I think MMA fans want more, and I think that's the one criticism that people have had for One Championship over the last while. To be fair, some cards have had less than 4, so this is an improvement. I'd love to see at least 6 fights on these cards, especially the big ones. Let's make them predominantly MMA cards. If you're putting on a 12-fight card, I think 6 of them should be MMA. I think probably the top 4 or 4 of the top 6 should probably be MMA. If you want, obviously you're putting on the championship cards as well. But it's definitely an improvement, and the level of MMA that they have on this is absolutely fantastic. And this first fight for me is, I'm very surprised this fight is happening, to be honest, because it is not the normal fight that you would see in an MMA organization, because it's the 10-0, no mercy, Halil Amir against the 10-0 Akbar Abdullayev. And if you have been following me over on Twitter, you will know what I think of both of these guys, but especially Akbar Abdullayev. There's probably 3 guys in the world at the moment who I think are the top up-and-coming prospects. He's one of them. The other guys I would name are Paul Hughes and Norbert Navinyi Jr. There's probably a lot more guys out there as well, and I'm sure a lot more maybe over in Eastern Europe, and a lot more in coming out of Dagestan and things like that I would be somewhat familiar with. And the likes of Khurshid Kakarov as well, who won the tournament from PFL last year, and obviously you could say Parnas, but I think he's older than that. Older is not the word, but he's no longer a prospect, I don't think. But these are mine. These are the guys I look at and go, maybe, and you know what? I'll put it this way. Maybe the guys a lot of people wouldn't have heard of. Maybe these are the guys, and maybe Paul Hughes is kind of changed now because he signed for PFL, and because he has the Irish MMA media behind him as well, which definitely helps. But these lads, they're really good. And when I see a guy fighting like Akbar Abdullayev, I find it very hard to hold back in my thoughts about him, because I get so excited. And I'm also pretty excited about Halil Amir, to be honest. The one difference between the two of them, which I think is a big advantage to Halil Amir, is that he has fought a way more dynamic and eclectic mix of opponents. He's fought Timothy Natyukin, he fought Maurice Abedi, who's on this card as well, we'll talk about in a second. He fought Ahmed Mushtaba, 3 very, very good fighters. He also fought over in UAE Warriors. We know if you're fighting in UAE Warriors, you're not getting any easy fights over there. The one thing I would say about Abdullayev is he hasn't gotten that yet. He's only had 2 fights in One Championship. One of them was a 44-second knockout over Oteho, and that's a very good win. Aaron Canarte, a very good fighter as well, but I don't think he knocked him out in 41 seconds as well. He hasn't, even if these lads are very good fighters, he hasn't been able to show it against him. Now, he fought in WEF and RCC and FFC. against, you know, some guys with good records, but not the names maybe you would be massively familiar with. He's coming out of Al Munar team, who I'm not massively familiar with either, but he's fighting out of Kyrgyzstan. It's one of these guys that he's 26 years of age. There's many questions about him. I'd like to know a lot more info about him, and I'm looking forward to tuning in this weekend to maybe even hearing it on the broadcast and things like that, because I think this is the sort of lad that, you know, let's say you're an Eric Nixick and you're tuning into one championship card, and you see this guy and you're like, let's get on the phone to that guy, and you know, we'll put a few $100 together and get him out to Las Vegas, because that's the sort of fighter you want on your team, you know. But that's beside the point anyway. But I wanted to mention that first. The levels which they have fought are very different. Now, the levels that fighters are is very different from the level of their opponents. At the end of the day, you're not fighting their past opponents, you're fighting them. And this is very exciting. Right, let's get into how these two lads fight. So Akbar, his record, first of all, 10-0, 9 knockouts, 1 submission, all bar 1 finished in the first round. The other was in the third round, so you know he's a bit of cardio that can keep him going as well if he needs us, not just all first round finishes. Halil Amir, again, a finisher, only 1 decision out of his 10, 8 knockouts, 1 submission. He is more some second, first, third round, so he's kind of he's one of those fighters, as I say, when you're fighting Mari Sabedi, you're going and go to decision with him, or fighting that you can finish him in the second round. You know, that's the difference there, I would say, majorly. On them as fighters themselves, watching, so I had notes for Abdullayev going into his last fight, and he only had 41 seconds, and he only has 44 more seconds now. But I think one thing that changed is looking at him as it's funny, he's finished all his fights, but looking at him as more of a finisher, looking at that as a weapon. Because it's sometimes I go and watch these guys and I look at their technique and I look at, you know, the ability they have, how they might match up against someone else, and you know, we put those parts together and we get a result, whether, you know, we get a result in terms of our call on the fight, but then obviously we get a result on a Friday or Saturday night in terms of how the fight goes. But looking at it, sometimes you just need to look at the overall picture, right? Two names I always bring up, funnily enough, when I'm talking about is McGregor, obviously, Junior Dos Santos, right? I love using Junior Dos Santos as an example of a fighter, and I don't know why, but he to me was always a finisher. McGregor, always a finisher, you know. And sometimes, like some lads, and I've heard Chels talk about this before, you know, sometimes when you go for the finish, you're always going to lose a decision, but sometimes people need to just go for it, because that's in their nature. They're so ultra confident and they're so good at it. It's a weapon, and it's almost natural for them as well. And I think for Abdullayev, it is natural for him, right? And I'll tell you why. The biggest reason, I think, and right, again, I'll say the adjustment in quality, and which we'll see a massive one here on Friday night, might change this, right? It might change the quickness, might change the finishing ability early. But the biggest reason I think his finishing is natural is because he is really, really, really good at being defensive when going mad to finish someone. He moves his head all the time, and he's very good at it. Like, it's natural to him, right? The other parts of his game that I like, he loves, to mention McGregor again, you know, that kind of vaulted uppercut, the one that James Gallagher famously threw and got him caught in the Ricky Bandejas fight, with the one McGregor threw so well against Eddie Alvarez multiple times. He loves that. The only thing about that shot is it takes away the good defensive part, because no one, even McGregor, no one throws that shot without eating shots back, right? But when he's not throwing that shot, when he's coming in, when he's throwing his jab, when he's throwing his lefts or rights, is very good. Vicious leg kicks. His left hook has just insane power. A real good boxer, but good sprawl too, and very, very good takedown defense. And he's going to need it here, because Halil Amir, again, right? this is not. If you're talking about a top prospect in Abdullayev, this is not the type of opponent that's going to make it easy for him to keep that mark of 10-0 and keep that undefeated record. He's a strong wrestler. He gets that Dagestani handcuff, really good ground and pound. He catches lads by the hips and just pulls them around the place. And his striking is very, very good too. It's who was I talking to? I was talking to someone last week, and I think it was maybe Brad Wharton a couple of weeks ago actually on a Cage Warriors preview, and you know the mark of a good fighter when two people watch him and one thinks he's a striker and the other thinks he's a wrestler, you know, or the other thinks he's a grappler, and that's the case I think with Halil Amir. Very good grappler, but really good striker as well. Again, lovely leg kicks. If this turns into a battle of leg kicks, we could be in for some serious reddening of these legs here. He's a southpaw as well, with a lovely left hand, lovely knees. The one big issue I found with him, doesn't really react as well to pressure or when he's getting pushed against the cage. But he is quick to turn and get out and use that offensive wrestling of his own. I wonder how good the wrestling is. We don't see it too much of Abdullayev, but it'll be interesting to see if he is the one to go out and wrestle Amir. I think it's going to be the other way around, but let's see. Halil Amir, we talk about Maurice Bevi, but 2 fights ago he went to war with him. A great BJJ battle, nearly won by guillotine and a Sulaev stretch, so he's very, very good on the ground. I'm going to sit by my guy Abdullayev, but I only because I've called him one of the top prospects in the world. Honestly, this is a real tough one. Here, I'm okay. I'll make an admission here. It's a bit of bias going for my pick for Abdullayev. I actually think Halil Amir might win this. I think it might be a step too quick for Abdullayev. But having said that, I still think, win or lose here, I still think he is one of the top prospects in the world. I've no problem saying that. Some people might think, well, Sean, if you think he's one of the top prospects in the world, surely you think he's going to win. That's not always the case. Sometimes moves come a little bit too early or against the wrong opponent at the wrong time. And this might be that. And, you know, is that it? If someone loses a fight, that doesn't mean they're useless. That doesn't mean they're not going to come back or not be a top prospect or a top champion in the future. And I think that might be the case here. But if Abdullayev goes out and wins this, you're talking about superstar. You're talking about maybe moving on from that prospect tag. And at the weight class, you know, featherweight, there's some really fun matchups there, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. So, pick 'em fight there, toss up. I'm gonna heart Abdullayev, head Amir. The aforementioned Maurice Abevi is in the next fight against Zhang Lieping. Abevi, just a really good fighter all the way around. Only 24 years of age, only 8 fights into his career. Only that one loss against Halil Amir. He bounced back from it pretty quickly against Blake Cooper in one championship. In his next fight, he's won one now in one championship. And this is his time, I suppose, to go to the next level. His opponent is 34 years of age, Zhang Lieping, and obviously we've seen him in one championship a good few times, but we've also seen him in the UFC. Back in the 2014-15, he had a stint there where he fought Cajun Johnson, Chris Wade, and Brendan O'Reilly after coming in from the Ultimate Fighter China finale, win 2-2 in the UFC. So not a bad record there at all, really. So and a good fighter too. I think an improved fighter. I watched one of his older fights, and he fights very differently than what he used to. You know, he's only lost in his last since 2018 is against Said Ismagayev, who is, you know, as we know, one of the best fighters in the world at the weight class. And you know, you wouldn't really hold it against him. I don't think. Lieping is a strong wrestler. We saw it in his last fight against Natyukin that. Or it was the file-long fight maybe I was watching actually, where he sets it up really well. And I'll talk about the setup in a second, but he looks very stiff on the feet. And again, I was saying it, you wouldn't confuse him for a wrestler and a striker. We know he's a wrestler. The second he moves to wrestling, he's no longer stiff. He's open and brilliant at getting that double leg, something we don't see as much these days. Another thing we don't see as much is the ground and pound. You know, he reminds me a little bit of Dan Henderson, stiff on the feet. When the fight gets to the ground, he has the big traps as well, the big shoulders, and he can land lovely punches, lovely at taking the back. Really slick, really good BJJ. But on the feet, then the setups, it's really smart the way he does it, because he's not, they're not the fastest guy in the world standing up, but he slowly creeps his way into range. Like, he tiptoes forward, and one thing I would say is, I said he's not the fastest. He's sneaky fast with that right hand. That right hand that lands inside is so good from Zhang Weiping. It's dangerous, and a bevy, a guy who, you know, has been knocked down, has been hit hard before, will definitely need to watch out for it. But a bevy on the other side, brilliant defensively with his movement, really, really, really good for a young fighter in his career. Great head work, great footwork, but it drains his energy, and it's something I think we see a lot of younger guys having to learn. You know, there is that. You know, it's almost easier to go fully forward and fully attack than to go fully backwards and be defensive and get in your bike all the time. It definitely drains you more. Having watched MMA for years, and he is kind of one of those. No, he's not ultra defensive or anything like that. He's just good with it, but it's very hard to upkeep, especially if a guy is coming forward at you, which Weiping will be. When he does get tired, he gets wide open. But will that be the case here? It's hard to call, really. He's a wild striker with flying knees and turning kicks. Very good combos, very fast. He has a takedown too. He's a win by calf slicer, so he's good on the ground. And it's a very interesting fight. I just wonder, will the speed of a bevy be too much for Zhang Weiping? It's funny because, you know, the biggest fight of his career for a bevy is that one against Halil Emir. And, you know, he did lose that, I suppose, pretty comprehensively to takedowns and, you know, to a more well-rounded fighter. It was almost exactly a year ago. I wonder the improvements he has made. Has he gone to the next level? Again, only 24 years of age. The cardio as well. Has that improved? A very tough one to call. Again, I might go the opposite of this one and with the other one. I think a bevy is probably, you know, our Weiping is probably the better all-around fighter, but I think maybe the speed, the athleticism, the defensive work of a bevy might be enough to see him through here if he can pick him off. Lasting the 3 rounds is going to be difficult. He's going to need to make him pay. Even, like, I wouldn't suggest it's a bad thing for him if there was a 2 to 3 minute portion in the second round where there's a clinch. You know, conserve that energy. Don't, you know, even if you're losing it, even if you're the one getting pushed against the cage, don't spend too much time losing. Remember as well, these fights are scored as a whole, sorry. So it's not a big issue. You know, in one championship, spending 3 minutes against the cage is 100%, you know, just wasted time. We know in other organizations maybe that's not the case, but it is here. So yeah, I'll lean a bevy, but not with a great deal of certainty whatsoever. The next fight then is a flyweight MMA fight between Rhys McLaren and Hu Yong. Rhys is a southpaw switcher. Lots of movement on the outside. Throws with big power and throws lots of shots. You know, he always says John Wayne Parr in his corner, and we know, you know, when you have John Wayne Parr in your corner, you know what that's about. There's going to be that power and speed. Again, variation is the biggest thing I'd say about Rhys McLaren. Does a lot, but again leaves himself a little bit open. Maybe throws too much, and he's, you know, obviously he's used to fighting a lot of the stand up, whether it's Muay Thai or mostly kickboxing. But he can wrestle too. He's a really good double leg, very good jiu-jitsu, and he does look for submissions. You know, he's a finisher. Again, another guy who's a finisher for the smaller weight classes. You know, he's more methodical on the feet, I think, than he is on the ground, where he goes for the finish more, but he's strong, technical, and, you know, a strong guy for the weight class as well. And when you see him on the ground, he's very good at passing, very attacking, as I said. But keeping that, you know, if he can keep a guy at the end of the jab, he's happy to do that. Hu Yong on the other side, then he loves to sit low on his shots, ready to throw, very good chin. not the best wrestling in the world. So I can definitely see this being a stand-up match, unless McLaren turns it into a wrestling match, which he could. But I don't know. I don't think he will. He loves the old belly kick, does Hu Yong. Spams the leg kicks again. Maybe throws too many leg kicks, a little bit like Reese. He throws maybe too many shots as well, but that leads to a fun fight here. But it's all big movements from Hu Yong, all one shot, bombs in with that right hand, even against very good strikers, and it kind of, him backing up doesn't help him, right? Because when he backs up, he doesn't have that power. He doesn't have what makes him dangerous coming forward. And against a guy like McLaren as well, I think that could be an issue. Now, as I said, he doesn't have the greatest takedown defense in the world. He has a bit of wrestling himself, but he's always moving, always throwing big shots, and always in there with a chance. 16 fights into his career now at 28 years of age. He's on a great run. Like, he beat Eko Rani last time out, who is an animal of a fighter. He's beaten Yehe Usakyo in there. Like, the only fight he's lost in his last, 10 is against Yuya Wakamatsu, who is probably with Demetrius not around at the moment, probably the number one in that division at the moment. So a very, very, very good fighter. And Reece McLaren is kind of the guy you need to beat to get to that next level. Again, we saw Yuya Wakamatsu beat him. We saw Danny Kinyard beat him, Kevin Bellan, Bibiano Fernandez. But he has some very good wins in there as well. Wezi, Widson Ramos, and a few more as well. So it's a massive opportunity. Look, for Reece McLaren, I think Hu Yong will be the big favourite in this, and I do predict him to win. But look, Reece McLaren's only one or two fights always away from a title shot. Lost the last time out by unanimous decision, is also won't want to lose here again. So that's a big fight for him. Also a big fight is in the women's lower weight classes, and it's a fun one between the atomweights in Chichiro Sawada and Noelle Grandjean. Sawada has probably been the standout fighter over over the last while in one championship. She's only had one fight so far, but I believe she's supposed to have another, but it fell out, or maybe it didn't. Maybe this is just it. But she fought in March anyway. She's 7-0, and she is an absolute beast. It was a very fun fight against Sheehan Ranzawan, who came to fight, was in no mood to be losing that fight, came with some good counter wrestlings, came with some good strikes of her own, and had absolutely no problem fighting in there with Sawada. Sawada, really good wrestler. She's wrestled on the Japanese wrestling team and different things like that. She's only 26 years of age, 4'11", so she's small in stature, but she's big and hard, an absolute animal on the ground. The one thing in MMA she's going to have to learn is to kind of keep that position, to get that position, I suppose. And fighting in the ring as well is tough, I think. In the ring. When she gets to the cage, I think she'll be a different animal as well. But her takedowns are different class. Her top game is different class. Her athleticism is different class. Again, as I said, at 26, she's 8 fights into her career. She's one draw. When she's 18 fights into her career, I think she's going to be an absolute issue for a lot of people. I think at the moment she probably is as well. Noelle Grandjean is 5-1 in her career, only 27 years of age. This is her fourth one championship fight. She fought Leah Bivens in her debut, lost to So Kim in 2023, and a few weeks ago beat Victoria Silva in that one. She's a good wrestler as well, good ground and pound, a judoka. So it's going to be that style going up against the style of Sawada is going to be an issue. Honestly, I think it's going to be big problems for Grandjean unless she's coming out here with a different level of striking, I suppose. And I know she's been training over Tiger Muay Thai, so I'm sure her striking has been improving. The bits and pieces I've seen of it are good. Like, she's not a bad striker at all. She's well able to strike, but I find it very hard to not see Sawada going across here. I don't think Grandjean is as good a fighter as Sawada's last opponent, Sheehan Ranzawan, and I don't think it's going to be as hard of a fight for Sawada either. I think this is very much, we saw the last fight, we tried to put her to a level. She didn't really reach it. She won the fight and she won it well, but she needs maybe a little bit of a step back. I think this slightly what she's getting here. A little bit unfair because it's good matchmaking, I think. But I do think Savannah will win this, and I think she'll probably be a big favourite coming into this as well. So that's it. Those are the big fights on this One Championship Fight Night 22 card. It goes down, as I said, over in the Lumpini Boxing Stadium in Bangkok in Thailand on May 3rd. You can watch it on Prime Video if you're in the US or in Canada, and you can watch it on Sky Sports here in Ireland or the UK, and check out the One Championship website for more details if you're other places in the world. So I will leave it at that. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please tune in after the event in the 24 or 48 hours after it. I will have a review of it. So tune in for that. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com, and I'll see you all next time.